starting a little late today. And welcome to the journey. The journey is from me to you and from you to me so we can reach a higher level. And I'm Charles Morse, and sitting in by myself today. Usually I'm with Dr. Robinson, who is on hiatus right now because of his work and the things that he is doing to bless our community with the services that he's being able to provide because he's moved into a new building, and with that comes some more responsibilities. And so as of right now, he's not been able to take the time off. One of the things that I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about moving the journey from Friday at 7 to Monday at 7. So I think that's probably what will happen, that we will move the journey from 7 p.m. on Friday to Monday on at 7 p.m. And we will make that announcement. We will put it on the website where you are now, www.thejourney2020.com. Welcome once again. I'm Charles Morris. Happy to be with you on this Friday evening. A lot been going on in my life, and I wanted to, as I was talking earlier about the fact that I hate this time of the year, or I hate when there is an election year. I hate election years because it really reveals who we are as a whole in this country. And so there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to that. But that's a whole nother topic in the sense of just wanted to share some things with you tonight because my heart is heavy. I think next week I'm going to play off of this week as well, but I wanted to talk in reference to what it's like to have to bury your parents. I recently had to lay my father to rest this week, and now that my mother is gone and my father is gone, I guess life takes on a different perspective from just trying to understand some things. The journey that we take and the things that we try to understand, and for the last, I'll say maybe the last 10 years or so, life has been a different journey for me, dealing with things emotionally and mentally that I never knew that was part of life. Conversations that I'm not quite sure that someone could have with you to better understand how life taps into your emotions and your feelings. Life certainly is ever changing, that is constant. And so as you think you got it figured out, there's always something else that comes along. So the older I get, the more I realize how much I don't know. And I can say that beyond the shadow of a doubt, that the older I get, the less I know. And sometimes it can be extremely scary based on what you have been told. And we are caught up in a massive of feelings and emotions, which in a lot of times has absolutely nothing to do with the reality of life, but it's our reality that we try to play into life. And so with that being said, so where do you put that? And I think one of the most important things that I'm learning, or that I have learned, and that is always talked about, and that is how we need each other and how important family and friends are. Because in reality, there's truly nothing else that will supersede that, and that is family and friends. We may take a journey upon our lives to go in the directions of something else, but it will always steer back to family and friends. We may try to suppress it. We may try to run away from it, But the truth of it is that's the way God made us. And usually on the journey, we try to cover a lot of different topics, and we have guests. And um, I know for a fact that, like, for an example, we would be currently talking about the presidential race at this moment in time, to be talking about Hillary Clinton and Sanders and Donald Trump. And I've often wondered, what would Donald Trump be if he wasn't rich? And with his personality, which has always been based around his money, I wonder what he would be if he had never accomplished or come from money. What would he be? You know? And not that it means anything, just a question to ask, of not anything negative or positive. You just wonder, with his personality, what do you think Donald Trump would be if he wasn't, if he didn't have money? If he was the guy that was trying to make it and trying to be out on the streets, uh, hustling in the sense of what we do every day, in the sense of whether or not it's trying to further your education, just going to work. What would Donald Trump be? You often wonder about that. And the reason why I say Donald Trump is because he's a constant reminder of everything that I know that I would never want to be, period. And people will always focus on his money and his money and his money and his money. And I won't get into my own personal opinion of that. That's a later discussion. But times and history has taught us some things about when it's kind of, well, I won't get into that either. That's a whole nother show. And it's not that I dislike Donald Trump, because in reality I don't know him, but I have seen and heard him speak. I have seen him over the years of showing that Donald Trump is a narcissist on so many levels, and a narcissist, period, is just not a good thing, regardless if you're Donald Trump or anybody in particular. And there's stories that I can tell, and there's a book that I'm working on right now, that there's a couple of people that I am talking, that I will be making reference to. And I'm kind of all over the place right now, but it just made me think of, I was talking with Dr. Robinson earlier, and I wanted to do a show on just that topic itself, because I was telling him that very first time, and at that time I did not know what it was. I had met this person and we had become very good friends, but that was the first time I actually encountered and tried to understand this person, who was very interesting to me, because their personality was so much about, if it wasn't about them, they struggled. And I had never been that close to someone whose personality was so strong in the sense of a narcissist. It was, I mean, I better understand it now. I didn't quite understand it then, because I just thought it was very peculiar of this personality that was very hard to understand. And the person, not that the person was a bad person, but I had never quite run into a person's personality like that. It is very hard to describe when you're dealing with a person who can't see beyond themselves. It's a whole nother take on life. I have a cousin that's like that. And her whole life, it's kind of like, even when I can remember, that as a child, because she's a few years older than me. So as a teenager on in life, whenever the phone would ring and they would say, "Oh my goodness, this such," is like, "Oh, what now?" And that's the way it always was. It was never like when my cousin called, it was like, "Oh, hey, such a." It was always like, "What now?" And so when you hear some of her stories and some of the things that she had done, and some of the things that she got herself involved in, and her lack of relationship that she had with her mother, to the point that whatever that was, that she couldn't even show up to her mother's funeral. And to hear some of the things that my friend did, that I was just talking about when I was really trying to understand his personality, because she told me just how much she loved her grandmother. And she said, Charles, I love my grandmother. I love her. And at this time, when I met her, her grandmother at this time was 94 years old. So if you trace back to, if you go back a few years when her grandmother was probably in her 70s. Let me see. Yeah, probably in her 70s. She told me the story of, she took her grandmother to the store. And because her grandmother took so long, she left because she wanted to go and be with her boyfriend. So therefore, her 70-plus-year-old grandmother had to walk home from the store. I'm not quite sure how long that walk was, but can you imagine that you would leave your grandmother to go and be with your boyfriend, and she now has to walk home, period? And she said, Charles, I think about it every day, and how bad I feel. But the personalities still continue based on some other things. And I'm having this conversation just talking about a narcissist and the personality of someone like Donald Trump. And there's an old saying, not an old saying, but Donald Trump kind of reminds me in the sense that I always ask the question to people. Once we saw who Moses was, his relationship with God, and him knowing who God was, and because God knows his people and he knows our makeup. So can you imagine? Here's a man who had spoken to God. God had spoken to him. He had done all these things through God and God's will. God had revealed all these things to him. But yet, Moses still ended up being someone arrogant, somewhat of a narcissist. And because of this behavior, because of that mindset, he did not enter the promised land. So how do you do that? How do you have this relationship with your creator? How do you go through all the things that you went through? How do you part the Red Sea? How do you lead all these people through God, who he knew, and still you stood up in an arrogant way and then forgot? And I'm not saying it in reference to Moses. I'm saying it in reference to our makeup and who we are and how we are and how quickly we can forget because of our selfishness and our greed, which we continue to show to where we are and how this world is today. Because whatever that is, when God put us together and when he had Adam and Eve in the garden, and when he decided that this is who I want to be, he knew. And there's certain things that are placed in the Bible, and as we read them and try to follow through, then there's things in which we don't want to follow because it doesn't cater to what we want to do and our feelings and our emotions and the things that we want to lead in. But because he knows us, he said, this needs to be this way. It needs to be very particular this way because I know my people. But we do not want to hinder to that. We do not want to, as say, well, follow these rules because it's not what we want to do. So it's kind of difficult, not kind of difficult, it's extremely difficult to be obedient in a way that we can not make it about ourselves. And I think that's one of the hardest things in life that we face all the time. Giving up unto ourselves and saying, Lord, I give this to you. And so, with that being said, there's so much that we can say. There's so much that can be said, and in so many ways. And so, with that being said, I I like to talk more, about my friend, or more about just life itself. And as I struggle with trying to have a certain type of relationship with my father, and then at the very end, towards as it started to come down to the end, because I'm leaving a lot out, it was like, how dare I had so much emphasis on what I wanted in the relationship with my father, because I grew up without a father. Well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I grew up with a father, but without a relationship, because I saw my father and actually spent some time with him, and I saw him daily. I saw him all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but he was there where I saw him, but I did not have a relationship. And as you get older, when you start to understand what a father son relationship is supposed to be, then you start to become frustrated, hurt, angry, disappointed. You start to become so many things, and you start to blame and find fault. Not in a way that you want to, but it has more to do with just your feelings and your emotions. It has to do with more of your feelings and your emotions. And being so angry and so frustrated in so many ways when it comes to my father, I come to realize, not purposely, how selfish one can be based on your feelings, based on your emotions. And as I am encouraged myself to write a book about my father, about my family, not necessarily my father, it's more so about my grandfather. And the book will be called The Sins of the Father, because I've seen, and the reason why I talk in terms of Donald Trump is because I've seen what that can do to a family. That attitude, that arrogance. I've seen how it can be transferred from one child to another child to a generation. I've seen it as I talked about my cousin who didn't show up to her mother's funeral. All of that goes back to my grandfather. I've seen things in the family that goes back to my grandfather. I've seen how the family couldn't come together, and I've seen how all that played out through my grandfather. And so when I think of Donald Trump, I think of my family. I think of things that I've seen. I think of Moses. I think of how God reveals certain things to us. Because when you observe and when you know who God is in His Word, and it's not a matter of judging anyone. It's not a matter of judging. It's a matter of observation. Because once you know who God is, and once you understand who He wants us to be, who He wants you to be, how He wants you to handle situations, and not that you're going to be perfect in handling everything in a perfect way, but in the back of your mind and in your heart and in your soul, He knows that He wants you to be patient to the best of your ability. He knows that He wants you to be forgiving. He knows that you need to be disciplined. He knows that all these things that comes out of you, that erupts, that has more to do with being selfish and greedy and all these things that shows that when you are in a situation, in a circumstance, in a moment where it's all about you, now you're revealing who you are and you're not showing who he is. And the challenges that we face each and every day of that, and what does that mean? And so, where are you when it comes to your patience, your understanding, your observation of your strength and your weaknesses? And so, it's a constant struggle. Because life is a constant reminder. Because there's always somebody tapping on you, trying to trigger something. Sometimes purposely, sometimes not. Life is just that way. And so, it's a matter of nothing but trials and tribulations. It's not a matter of being perfect. It's not a matter of the fact that you're going to always do right. That's not what that is. It's a matter of you just better understanding who you are and what you're not. And I think one of the better lessons in life is when you wake up and realize that you're nothing but dust. And the funny thing that's about the book that I'm going to be working on, there's actually three of them. And I had been talking about this book for a very long time. And people have asked me about it. And the only reason that I didn't really work on it the way that people thought that I should is because this book that I've been wanting to write for so many years, I had to feel right in my heart and my mind and my soul, because it's a book that will reveal a lot about myself and other people. And I wanted to feel right about the words that I chose or would choose to put in this book. I wanted to feel right and make it something spiritual. But if I had written that book when I originally wanted to some years ago, it would be told in a totally different way. And not that the truth would be any different than what it is. It's just that I, in the back of my mind, just know that I just wanted it to be a type of book, not that it's not that you can't tell your dirt. It's just that I didn't want it to be about dirt. That I wanted to be something that when people read it, they could better understand my journey and where I was and how I saw things and what was going on in my life. Which means that which means that when I was a child, I thought like a child. Okay? When I was a child, I acted like a child. When I was 21, I acted like I was 21. And the way that I saw the world is totally different than when I was 30. I didn't see the world then the way I saw it when I was 21. When I was 21, when I was 13, I saw the world completely different than when I was 21. And so it's transgression in life is the transition in life. I'm sorry, the transitions in life, and that's the way it's supposed to be, because that's what life is. It's a journey, and I think sometimes we forget that, and especially when it comes to our kids sometimes, because we have taken the journey. And then I think the most amazing thing to me is when you run into parents who don't want their kids to go through anything. That is so amazing to me. How else are you going to learn lessons in life if you don't go through stuff? If you don't have a heartbreak, if you don't go through being broke, if you don't go through the trials and the tribulations, if you don't make the mistakes, that's what life is, for you to make the mistakes and for you to learn. You can't get away from it. And so sometimes it just blows my mind that I see parents act the way that they do when their children, or they think their children, and it's not that you shouldn't try to help your children not make those mistakes, but the overreaction to the point that they act like the child can't make the mistake, that they can't go through a heartache, they can't go through this, they can't go through that. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. It really is. And so that's what life is. Life is lessons. And the older I get, I think the more I'm fascinated as how selfish we really are. Not everybody, of course, that's not what I mean. But I'm talking about as a whole, as a country, as the people, when it comes to how we see each other. And through the professions in life, whether or not you are a lawyer, a school teacher, a fireman, a policeman, a plumber, it's all really the same. It's how you treat people and how you see yourself when it comes to people. Because if you see yourself above people, there's a problem. And it doesn't take long, or because of what you have, you thinking that you're better than somebody, or you may judge somebody based in which we're so guilty of in our culture. And because, and I always say this, we will judge someone and put them in a place maybe not so that they deserve to be there, but you may put them there because of what they have and where they live. It doesn't say anything about their character and who they are. It doesn't say that they will treat you right and they will be there for you and that they're honest and that they're good people. You're judging them on what they have and the way they dress, the type of shoes they wear, the kind of car they drive. So you judge them on that, which is really sad because that's crazy. You know, they may be blessed academically to be able to do this and that. It doesn't say anything about their character and their walk in life, and how long do you have to live in order for you to better understand a whole lot of things when it comes to life and who we are and how we are and life itself. And as you see, I have a friend here, but next week's show, I really want to give a testimony on some things, and I want to honor my father, because there's some things that are heavy on my heart that I wanted to say at his funeral that I didn't, but I'm not real good at taking notes and being able to follow the notes. A lot of times when I speak, I just speak from my heart. I never really learned how to really go by a guideline. I have, but I'm not real good at it. And sometimes even when I've had the guideline, I kind of get away from it because I just naturally speak from my heart, and that came from being dyslexic and not being able to really take good notes at times. And so over the period of years, you just learn to speak using less as far as pen, pencil, and paper and things like that. So, because it even throws you more off when you get up there and you're nervous and you're trying to concentrate and you're trying to find your place. And I'm much better at it now that I'm older, but at a younger age, that would have been extremely, extremely difficult for me. But I'm much better at it now. It was in my development, in my maturity, as far as self-confidence, that took a very long time, where I was very immature in that area for a very long time because of some difficulties when it came to certain things like reading and writing. So I wasn't very confident, and the anxiety, I didn't understand what that meant, because you get overexcited and you get nervous, and then therefore you can't concentrate, and everything seems to be bigger than what it was, or bigger than what it is, and you just all over the place, and you can't focus worth anything. Um, and so a lot of times in life, you stay out of situations and where you have to stand in front of people and speak and talk and read and write, and you just don't participate, or you don't go, or you just don't do it. And um, I know I'm kind of like all over the place, but I just I want to do a show, and I'm obligated to doing the show, and so I have to try to do that and to sit here. I remember years ago um, doing television or radio, and how difficult it must be when you're trying to interview someone. It's always very hard when you are interviewing people and you're talking to people and they give you yes and no answers. That's a hard interview to do. And so I remember when I used to work at Winds, 740 Winds, and there used to be Clive Thomas and Peter Rocchio and your boy Jim Phillips and a few other, Robert Vincent Sims, and all these people that I work with doing talk radio. Now, there is a talent, a sheer talent to be able to do talk radio when there's no one there to interview, or if you're just going to do a topic and it's just you. Now, a lot of times in talk radio, your format and what you do is based on call ins. And then you get to go back and forth. And then that's your show because they are the fillers. They call, they fill in the time, you get feedback, you get opinions, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. But that's why you have talk radio. Well, there's people who can do this, whether or not it's television or whether or not it's radio. And they can go on, and it takes a talent, not saying that's me, to sit and be able to have conversation and to be able to maintain some type of topic, and there's no one to talk to. Now, for me to sit here, not saying that I'm doing a good job of that, but for me to sit here now and where I started out years ago and to be able to do what I'm doing right now, you have no idea how far I've come, where I'm comfortable enough to sit here and look into this camera. There's no one here but my friend who you just saw, and engaging in just whatever it is that come to mind, and to be able to talk. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm good at it. My point of it is evolving to the point that I will actually sit down and try to do this. Because if you had asked me to do this years ago, when I was really getting into this, when I had no confidence in myself, when I would just be so nervous and then I would be stuttering and I'm just trying to find my words, to where I am right now, it's like night and day. So it's not a matter of saying that I'm good at it, because I'm not Jim Phillips, a guy who's excellent at basically taking up 2 hours and not even taking a call, and being able to, I would say, still be able to entertain you to the point that some people can still listen for a long period of time without turning the channel, hearing what he has to say. That's a talent. I'm not sure if I can keep listeners engaged, but I'm not talking about keeping them engaged. I'm just talking about the fact that I'm sitting here talking and that there's nobody else in the room and I'm not interviewing anybody, and to the point that I'm actually wanted to come here, wanted to do the show without a guest. That's a major, major, major step for me. And there's some things that I would like to say that I don't want to, in reference to the topic when it comes to my father, and some other things that I would want to talk about next week on the show that I think is so very important. But that's not here or there. As I was talking earlier, as I said that I hate an election year, because it just shows us how nasty we are. It shows us how hateful we are as a whole, as a country. It shows how divided we are. It shows us how dysfunctional we are. it shows us why we have all these many problems in our culture, period. Because it's as my pastor said, one of the reasons why we have a problems when it comes to East Coast versus West Coast, because that's what we see when we see the Democrats versus the Republicans. Not only do we see it when the Democrats and the Republicans, but we see it within the party itself. How the Democrats can't get along with each other. How the Republicans can't, and this is even before Trump. I'm not even, that Trump is that's a whole nother story. But I'm saying within the party itself, it's still an East Coast versus a West Coast situation. Everybody have all the answers. And I think I would love to do a psychological analysis. Uh, um, I would love to talk with some psychologists or psychiatrists in reference to. Let me make sure that I say it right. I would love to talk to the clinical part, the psychology part of who we are as a whole, not the Democratic Party by itself, not the Republican Party, but as human beings and who we are and how we are. When I was talking earlier about God knew how he made Adam, he knew how he made man. He knew what is it that is going on that makes us want to be so divided from each other, to say that we're so superior. So therefore, I have to be associated or not associated with, when actuality, we're not that far apart in the sense of who we are. We just want to make believe we are. And what is it with this conservative versus liberal and all this crap that they like to attach themselves to, which is nothing but a way of separating themselves, of trying to say that I am better than you? Because that's all it is. It's us as human beings and our nasty, evil, egotistical way of trying to place ourselves in position to say that I am not a part of you, you're not a part of me, I am a part of this, and this part is better than this. And so therefore, I bicker back and forth with you because I look at myself and I am some higher creature. So therefore, no matter what idea you have, no matter what you want to do for this country, it can't be anything other than something negative, something that's not good for this country whatsoever. You can never say, well, you know what? You know what? That's an idea, and that's okay. But I have a different idea that I think that might be a little better for this country. But it's never the idea. It always has to be something wrong. It always has to be something evil. It can't be just an idea of somebody thinking differently. It has to be something evil and wrong, and you're trying to run this country into the ground, and you don't mean anything for the country and all of this other crap. And, it's just a different way of thinking. And the sad part is that a lot of times when they deal with this country, and one of the reasons why I say I hate it when it's a political year, is because they always reveal how dumb they think we are as people. And sometimes I wonder, are we really that stupid to fall for what they throw at us? Because they're always throwing crap at us. So they must think that we're really just that stupid and ignorant. And all the things that they have done to set themselves up, and how we have allowed it over all these years, and that nothing is truly going to change. It really doesn't matter too much about who become president. Honestly, it doesn't. There are a few minor changes here and there, here, but it's the system and who we have put into power, from Congress to all these representatives to senators and so on and so forth, and judges, and the system that we have put in place for this country to be run by these people who really write write their own laws, write their own raises, and so on and so forth. And that's on us because they're supposed to be working for us, and they're not going to change it. Why would I? If why would I change my situation if I've set myself up to be in a higher power, and nobody can really touch me, and I can do my little thing and don't have to answer? Why would I change? Why would I do anything? Because I'm really protecting my own. And as long as I'm up here doing my little thing and keep the little peons down here, and as long as the little peons are down there, I'm in power. And if the little peons, that's the way that they look at us, are not in touch and not able to form a party of togetherness, and if they just stay down there and fight among themselves and fight over the little scraps of here and there that they think that they're entitled to, where I'm up here eating all the good cheese, and that's the truth. We're so busy fighting among ourselves for the little scraps that is being handed down to us. We can't focus on what's really going on for the people who set the tone for how things are for them, and the people that they continue to just replace seats, and the system stays the same. They keep eating and getting fatter and fatter, and we down here really bickering back and forth over nothing in the sense of this country, because we won't straighten them out. We won't straighten the system out. And they know that we're too far from reality of understanding how it works that we're not going to touch them. We're going to bicker back and forth. We're going to talk about all these other things that really means absolutely nothing. I'm sorry, I have a computer over there and it goes to sleep from time to time. And it's just sad that all these things take place the way that it does. And I really am frustrated, when I talk about us as a whole, and not knowing what really to say or do to help us, because we focus on all these things that has no meaning. And that's all we do, is that we go back and forth with each other, and it's not going to get us anywhere because we're not dealing with the true problems of this country and what was written long, long before any of us were born. And it's going to continue long after we're dead and gone until we decide to change the system. Nothing really too much is going to change. And unfortunately, we don't know that because we're taught that, well, you black, you white, you're German, you Jewish, you're Asian, you this, you that, and da 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 da. You're Hispanic, and you're Mexican, and da da da. And so therefore, and it's all this, and it's just crazy. And they know that it's hard to take them out of power because we don't have our stuff together as a whole when of the people of this country. And we'll riot in the street and kill each other versus marching up to the White House, up to Congress, and saying we're tired of this. Millions and millions of people. It's like the revolution has to take place, and we're too busy saying, "Well, I can't take off work." And instead of just coming together and as a whole, just saying as a country, we just need to march up as a whole, get ourselves together, forget about the differences in the sense of who's who, and just go up in crazy numbers and let them deal with the numbers of people saying that we're tired. This stuff need to be rewritten. Everything needs to be done differently. We need to restructure this. And it can be done. Now, I'm still all over the place, but my point of what I'm trying to say is that at some point we should tired of being screwed. You know? We should get tired of being taken advantage of. We should get tired of being labeled. We should get tired of them getting fat off of us and how they look at us and how they really think how naive and stupid we are as people, as a culture, as a society, that we have so many minor problems that we can't see the big problems. The minor problems are among ourselves and how we see each other. You know, neighbors can't get along with neighbors. Teachers fighting with parents. Parents fighting with teachers. You know, the kids and all the craziness that's going on. And all this other stuff that's going on in the neighborhoods and all these minor things, not minor in the sense that they're not real, but in the sense of the things that are keeping us from really focusing on why we have these problems in the first place. You know, it's our inability to really understand. You know, we'll focus on a football game. We'll spend more energy on a football game, a basketball game, all these things, sporting events that means absolutely nothing. Nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. But that's where we'll spend our time and our energy. We are gathered by the thousands to go watch a football game. You know, and if you ask them, the people that would fill up the Rose Bowl, to say, you same people, let's march up to Washington. You know, the same for that same enthusiasm, for that same spirit of saying we need to get this right. We really want to score a touchdown. It's amazing. It's amazing that we can come together for a stupid, meaningless sporting event. But when you talk about the quality of life and doing what's right, oh man, I need to go see Michigan and Notre Dame play. It's absolutely crazy how they got us hoodwinked and how brainwashed we are and how out of touch of reality we are. Oh man, I need to go see the NBA Finals. Really? You know, so what does that mean once this game is over? What do you get out of it? What? When the Super Bowl is over and they done crowned Super Bowl, what have you gotten out of it when it's all said and done? Where? What's in it for you? What? What is it? And then I guarantee you can't tell me. Oh, well, you know, I saw a game. And if you didn't play in it, if that wasn't your son or your nephew or your cousin, where you can sit and hug them and say, good game, you know, I'm proud of you, what do you get out of it? What is the purpose of it for you? Please tell me. I really would like to know. It means absolutely nothing. 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 But it's just time to go and try and win another one again, to go see, you know, another one. And so with that being said, this culture and what's going on with, you know, with us and all this other stuff. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just had to do that for a minute. I don't know. It's just sad that that we're so naive to who we are and what's going on. And it's always revealed every political year how naive we are, how they see us, and the bull crap they feed us, and we just soak it in. And we've gotten to the point that everything I just said is why Donald Trump is where he is, because we won't come together and did with what we need to do. Well, we tired of this. No, you're not. Because if you did, Donald Trump wouldn't be the headliner. Everybody would be laughing, which most of us are doing anyway. Because he's not the answer. He's just more of what I just finished talking about. And it's just amazing to me the minds people that you want to respect, people that you would like to respect, people that you think are a certain something. Do this. People that you think are a certain something don't have a clue. Because if you're looking at this guy to be an answer to anything, then you're missing something. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Terribly wrong. There's something wrong. And if you don't understand that, and I'm not saying that my words are golden, but what happens in life when you understand what's right and what's wrong? It's kind of like if you watch the Bible, and as Jesus said, if you watch the series The Bible, there's a part in there where he goes and he turns over the table when the tax collector is collecting the money, and he says, you cannot serve me if you're worshiping the silver and the gold. Now, nobody is saying that you need to be a fool when it comes to your money. That's not what I'm saying. But when you is in a place in life, and we're so much guilty of this, I'm guilty of it as well, on some things that you bring to the forefront, that you give meaning to the point that you haven't realized it has no meaning at all. But somehow or another, these things are a priority in your life. And when that supersedes and you are not able to have a vision and be able to look and see what is your God, then is one of the main reasons why we have these problems. Because you have to ask, what is your God? My Lexus, that house on the hill, my Jordans, the money in my pocket, this diamond ring, this necklace, this flat screen TV. These things are my God because I'm placing a value on it that supersedes who God is. And it causes me to make judgment based on these things that I have now given value. Sometimes it supersedes how I see my kids, how I see my husband, how I see my wife, how I see my neighbor, how even I may or may not even see my church. And so this country, I know is better than that overall, because I know that there are a lot of good people in this world. And one of the things that I have learned more than anything is that God places his angels in dark places. And there's always a light that shines. Unfortunately, we sometimes are so blinded and so in the dark, and we have so many different shades on, that when the light is shining, we can't see. And it may just be a little light in the room. We can't see. And when you are focused on something that you have given meaning to that has no meaning, then sometimes you will miss the most beautiful sunset that you will ever see, or the stars that are sparkling at night, or a cloud like no other, that you look up and you see the beauty of the day because you're so busy focusing on your Mercedes. And that's the sad part of not seeing the beauty of God and who God is, because your God consists of all the things that has very little meaning and value, something that can be taken away like that, and you're sitting there crying about it. I touch on a different subject that kind of helps you put things in perspective sometimes, and it gave me a different perspective. And I don't mean it the way that I'm gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Right now, they're fighting an unfortunate incident in Canada, or recently they've had earthquakes, and they've had flooding in Texas, and people have lost lives, they have lost homes, they have lost cars, and some of them have lost some of everything. So I'm not going to focus on the losing of their lives. So that's another subject. But people's houses have burned up. During the earthquake, the homes and buildings have disappeared. During the floodings, the houses have been washed away along with the cars. But when you understand the true essence of life and what it means, as hurt as you may be, you may learn that maybe the house that you lost is not nearly as important as the day that God has given you and your family. And not to take it lightly, but as we lose a home, as we lose a car, as we lose that memorable book of the pictures, and those things then that are cherished, because we cherish these things, and rightfully so. But life has a way of kind of tapping you on the shoulder a little bit and say, understand what's really important. As much as it hurts your heart and your mind, your soul, to lose your house, your baby pictures, all these things, because I have a lot of things over the years and what it means to me. But each day that I wake up that God has given me, how does that compare to the day and the blessings, the ones that are seen and unseen? So we're only limited to our imagination and our minds and for what we think are important. But the reality of it is, everything is already written for us. Everything is done for us in the sense of the saying, this is what you need to do. This is how it should be. Listen to me. I will guide you. So when we fall, and we're going to, when the storm comes, because it will, we can't get away from the storm. The storm is going to always come. There's nothing like being rooted and having a foundation. So when the fire comes, the earthquake comes, when the flooding comes, and even through something as dealing with the death of my father, the death of my mother, the foundation of his word, who he is, who he said he say that he is to me, that I have a foundation and an understanding of a shoulder that I can lean on, words that I can speak, a spirit that I know that can touch me. And with that being said, as we go into this presidential election, as we look and try and find answers to what is going to become of this country and the problems that we face, it's not even really up to the presidency. It's not. The problems are way bigger than that position, and it always will be. But what is it that we do each and every day of our lives? The difference that we can make, for the words that we can speak, for the people that we can touch, and for the things that are going on in our lives, the little things that will always make up the big things. We have to remember that. And with that being said, I would like to next week take an opportunity to speak upon my father, to say some things in reference to losing my mother, losing my father, losing my grandmother, losing my grandfather, losing my brother, losing my sister, and so on and so forth. And another person who was very close to me, who raised me, was my aunt. They're no longer here. And what does that really mean to your life and your perception? And how do you live life in reference to what they have taught you? And what does it really mean to you? And again, I think one of the biggest lessons in life is learning that you're nothing but dust. And how do you see yourself? You're nothing but dust. How do you see yourself? I don't know. How do you see yourself? I don't know how you see yourself. But it's so hard to get past yourself and who we think we are, and the definition and how we define ourselves. I thank God for all the things that he has done. My last show, I said a prayer, and I'm going to start off my shows with prayers, as I will end this show with this prayer. My Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. As I have so much heavy that's on my heart when it comes to my father, and some things that I have learned lately. But with that, Lord, as I pray and ask that you help those in Canada and Texas and around this world upon this day and the challenges that we face. For those who have lost their loved ones, for those who are just trying to deal with life itself. With this, Lord, I just ask that you continue to bless us and guide us and help us. Keep us strong and help us to stay encouraged. Lord, we know that you are here. And so, Lord, we ask that when you speak, that we can hear you. And I ask that you do speak to us, Lord. And for those, Lord, who truly need to hear your voice, I pray that there's somewhere at some point in time that they can put themselves in position that it can be quiet enough to hear the sound of your voice. As I speak upon you, Lord, it really doesn't mean anything until you reveal yourself to those who truly need to know who you are. It would not be my words. It would be you in the words that you speak and how you will reveal yourself to them. With that, Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you do. With that, my friends, as Dr. Robinson would say, the journey is from me to you and from you to me, so we can reach a higher level. And with that, people, you have yourself a blessed day. I'm Charles Morris, and this is The Journey 2020. You be blessed.